So I think the Mech Hunter is decent against the mages we've been seeing.
He's actually also 3-0 so far in this tournament, so doing fantastic. We don't mess around with game time here. All these players play particularly fast, I think, as well, as a region.
Yeah.
And also, they always end up just hitting matchups that are going to end pretty quickly one way or another. I think we've cast, what, one Warrior Mirror?
Yeah.
In the whole of like nearly 2 weeks, and there's no Warrior Mirrors this week, I believe, too.
Yeah, we've dodged
so we're doing pretty well here so far. Let's go into it. SamuelTsao on the Hunter versus DawN on the Mage.
SamuelTsao does have one of the more aggressive openings for Mech Hunter. There is only one mana minion in the deck. Well, two if you count 2 copies, but Vector is the only thing you can just play out on one that puts something on the board. You can use tracking, but it doesn't develop anything. So
it's one of the reasons being on coin for Mech Hunter, I think, is really good, because it's way more likely you have a 2-drop.
Yep.
So often you can go 2-drop into 2-drop, and you see the respect already and the difference in how you have to play this matchup as a mage. Is Khadgar, normally, you know, a power card used in a lot of powerful combos, mainly with Conjurer's Corn, of course, is just being played as a 2-mana 2-2, because you need to stop this mech train running straight through you.
Yeah, DawN knows he needs to put something on the board and start contesting, not just ping off and hope that's going to be enough, and kind of hold all the cards back until he has that crazy combo, because you might not always have that, you know, perfect crazy combo, so you got to make do with like half combos or something a bit more kind of restricted. And then if you hold back too long, you take too much damage, and by the time you have that kind of half combo out there, it's not enough, and the damage just bleeds through.
I really like this play as well. Just get rid of Khadgar. You end up with 3 minions on board. There was coin into the 3-drop there, but I didn't think it was worth it, because then Khadgar starts value trading, like Khadgar plus ping deals with the Mekaru. But this is nice, because if your opponent pings, then fine, you just keep going. If they don't ping, then great, you get to keep going a little bit more.
I know, I like this a lot from SamuelTsao. He has the option now of playing the Ursatron or coining out the Explodinator. Spider-Realm could be used here as a magnetic, but I don't think he wants to commit that to the board without having a target for it to go off of it if it happens to get removed.
I think I really like the Ursatron here, because coin into War Gear is normally very difficult to deal with for most classes, never mind Mage. So I think I just play on curve. It's a 3/3. It's one of the biggest minions you have in the deck. So you know, you just play it out, and then you've got options of either just Explodinator on curve. You've got the Spider Bomb into Coin Venomizer if you really need it, or you just don't and have to just hit them with War Gear anyway.
Yeah. DawN has the makings of a decent wide board. The problem is Apprentice plus Vexcro costs 6 mana, so it's not going to happen just yet. Looks like he's going to go in now, just with the Cyclone on 4 mana, thinking he needs to fight for the board now, which I do agree with. Unfortunately, there's no Elemental Evocation, so without a 1-mana spell here, he's not going to be able to chain whenever he plays. So he's considering if he wants to pick up like Cinderstorm to try and clear a wider board, or Snap Freeze is just a freeze for later. Looks like he's going for the Snap Freeze, which I think I do like.
Cinderstorm looks okay, but Snap Freeze just does more stuff consistently.
Elemental Evocation coming in after.
This is big though, because what I was going to say was, I was wondering if DawN was going to commit the bananas.
Oh yeah.
Because the more you do that, the less good Vexcro is going to be going forward, right?
True.
So it's a trade-off. You have the power turn now, or you try and hold off and have a power turn later on. DawN went for now, and it worked out okay. Snap Freeze is a relatively cheap card. Elemental Evocation can help out as well. So it means that there is at least a okay wave of Vexcro the turn after or the turn after that.
I like the decision to play with the Mirror Images here too. With a Magnetic, it's actually difficult to get past these 2 images, right? There's nothing you can magnetize. Yeah. You need two magnetics to get past them to be able to actually kill off the Sorcerer's Apprentice. So he's kind of making SamuelTsao have something. Whereas if he didn't play the Mirror Images and saved it for, say, Vexcro, I mean, on board, the Apprentice just dies, and that's assuming SamuelTsao puts nothing else onto, or doesn't magnetize anything.
And this is where SamuelTsao can make a few different plays here. He could get those 2 magnetized. He could go Venomancer coin into the Spider Bomb and get all the trades off.
Yeah.
And actually clear the board. Oh, he couldn't clear the board. It would actually work. Well, he could in a weird way, I think. But anyway, he could go wide, so he has kind of done that, but decided to just play it a little bit safer, keep as much on the board as possible, and just push some damage.
This does leave DawN with like an acceptable Cinderstorm if he wants to just bump the Mechru and then see what happens with the Cinderstorm. Don't really want to play Vex Scroll into Evocation. Doesn't really do that much, and there's still a threat of the Spider Bomb attached to the Mech Crew.
A Cinderstorm ping feels like it often just gets the job done.
You could Cinderstorm first to see kind of what happens, but
it's just because I think Vex Crow with a Snap Freeze and Evocation is a good enough turn next turn.
So Cinderstorm first is a punish if you happen to kill off the Mech Crew and the Spider Bomb goes off. So I think the trade is just a lot safer.
Yeah.
There are some instances where if you Cinderstorm first, you kind of give the Cinderstorm more minion targets to hit. Whereas if you bump in, there's a chance it kills off the one target and then hits face a couple more times. But I think this was just fine. The ordering was good.
I think start again. It's not the fastest game I've ever seen of Mech Hunter. SamuelTsao been kept in check quite well by DawN, but it only takes a couple of turns, and already DawN's just getting a little bit dry on actual playable resources here.
And this is the thing: if you make the mage kind of commit some of the resources early without going for those super big crazy combos, it becomes a lot more difficult for the mage to win. It kind of runs out of cast. Giants become unplayable. There's fewer spells to combo. Not to say that this was wrong from DawN's perspective. I think it was very correct of him to try to fight for the board with the early Apprentice Cyclone and the Cagner.
Do you think that you actually just Elemental Evocation Giant this turn? If you are DawN. I'm not saying if you are us, when we can see both hands. I'm saying if you are DawN. You've just seen Spider Bomb and the Venomizer. That is a lot of the answers to a Giant.
I think you do. Your point
it's going to get really punished, but as DawN...
I think you do need to... I don't think Vextro Evocation Snap Freeze is going to do just enough. I think if you Elemental Evocation Mountain Giant, it begs... SamuelTsao needs to have exactly a second Venomizer or a second Spider Bomb. In that case, it's going to be used up. Otherwise, he's going to need like a War Gear, and then everything has to trade to the Giant.
Right. So we can see now with that Spider Bomb in hand, SamuelTsao can clean this up easily and also just play another Ursatron as well and just keep cooking.
Keeps the Explodinator on board too. You can just magnetize the Spider Bomb to one of the Goblin Bombs, triggering the Death Rattle as well, which deals an extra 2 damage to DawN.
She's starting to get some damage on the board.
So the thing is, DawN isn't out of it yet. Like, one cheap spell away, like, if he draws a Ray of Frost or something, he's back in it. This Vextro with a Ray of Frost can help freeze up the board, let him go wide, and then actually give him a chance to develop a Sea Giant. He could also go Ray of Frost Snap Freeze if that comes off the top. A Magic Trick could help too, another Mirror Image. So there's some good draws.
That's the thing that's important as well, is the second SamuelTsao goes wide, Sea Giant Conjures Calling is not huge in terms of defensive, but you can just OTK your opponent next turn, even if they're from on 30. A lot of the 10 drops have such quite high attack, and some of them even have rush as well, along with Big Bad Archmage, which doesn't have giant attack on its own, but generates an additional 6 drop, which obviously is more power.
Well, that's unfortunate. If you had something else you could Conjure Calling, you could play with the Stargazer Luna and Conjure Calling it. Unfortunately, if you go Stargazer Luna and Conjures Calling the Luna, you do not get the card draw of it. I like this from DawN. Just play out the Sea Giant. Vexcrow is not really going to be doing much by itself with just a Snap Freeze, and the Snap Freeze you might even want to save for a bigger magnetized minion later. Also, from DawN's perspective, you've now seen 3 of the hard removal for SamuelTsao, so it's like, alright, do you have a 4th?
It's going to run out at some point, right?
And if you don't, you got to sink 8 damage into it. Or don't, and then, Conjure Calling can come out.
It's really weird now as well, right? Because SamuelTsao's got the choice of War Gear, trade. Yep, gone. Forget about the Giant. And you've got to assume DawN's running out of threats at some point. If he doesn't trade, then it does open up a Conjurer's Calling comeback, basically. It feels bad to just chunk 8 damage and just miss 8 damage to face. 10 with Hero Power, of course.
If it was a Mountain Giant, I think I would have traded into it. But with a Sea Giant, I'm thinking, I kind of want to push 11.
I think you trade, because right now, all I think is how do you actually lose? And I think you lose more often than not to a Conjurer's Calling than you do to the game continuing.
I disagree. Really? If you Wargear go face right now, that's... Look at this, 11, 13 damage. SamuelTsao disagrees. I would have liked going face here. Like we talked about, there's very few defensive options. There's like 2 defensive options you can get off of Conjurer's Calling a Sea Giant. But if you set your opponent down to, he would have had how much less health? 10 less health? DawN would have been at 10. I think from SamuelTsao's perspective, if there was a Ray of Frost, that would have happened already on the Cyclone turn, or would it, I mean, he could have used it to prevent some of the damage coming in this turn as well. Actually, no, this turn he spent his full mana on the Sea Giant, but the Ray of Frost would have had to have been drawn the last couple turns. I think I would have liked Chipping Face there.
Interesting, yeah, because for me, I'm more just thinking, like, how do I even lose this game if I kill this Giant? You've dealt with a Mountain Giant and a Sea Giant. They clearly don't have tons of good stuff. So if I just kill this one Sea Giant, do I ever lose? That would be my thought. I mean, this is a great pick.
Wild Pyromancer coming off of the Vexcro. It's kind of funny. I mean, I can't say something like, oh, you'd be playing around exactly Stargazer, Luna, Conch Calling, whatever, but I don't know. I feel like if you take too much time from SamuelTsAo's side, you're giving the mage time to find some out. Like, we saw yesterday, forgive me, I forget who was playing, but the game where we had the crazy Omega Medic, you know, Ziliac stuff, that happened because the mage had too much time. Granted, that game was a little bit different.
DawN, wasn't it?
Was it exactly?
Yeah, was it DawN versus Tyler?
No, it wasn't DawN versus Tyler.
It wasn't the Warrior. That was the Hakar, right?
Yeah.
That was the Bloods one, never mind. But yeah, I do agree. It's kind of tough, right? Because one of the things I view as well is because of DawN's hand size is relatively low, it at best costs 3 mana to Arcane Intellect to draw more cards, right?
Right.
And if they're spending 3 mana, then Mage doesn't do much else because we've already seen, you know, a Cyclone turn as well. 2 Giants are already gone. I like the trade from SamuelTsAo, but we'll see how it pans out for him because it's all good and well as saying what we like, but what actually happens is the most important thing.
With the Vexcro, and I'm expecting Stargazer Luna because that's kind of the most threatening here. Unfortunately, the Wild Pyro is left on the board, so one spell use from DawN will help clear up the entire board on SamuelTsAo's side. That being said, there's not much else DawN can do on his turn, but...
Did you just use the stat freeze now? Because everything else, I think, is a waste, right? Oh, I guess you keep it. I guess just one Ray of Frost is fine now, I guess, too. Like, trade Ray of Frost.
Yeah, I think having the option to snap freeze might be fine if, like, another Warrior comes down.
The frustrating part is it leaves him with 0 board.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem. You could mirror image and then Conch Calling it for 2 1/1s, but...
Well, the only thing I was thinking was if you Ray of Frost... And then, like,
oh, what if you double Ray of Frost here to clean up, and then you Conch Calling the...
that's what I mean. Ray of Frost with Conch means that you don't trade the minion, you have something on the board to actually play the game. Yeah, because you can't just say, okay, Mech Hunter, I cleared your board, but I have nothing left. Succubus there's a big deal.
Not bad.
Okay, so the pressure is starting to peter out a little bit here from SamuelTsAo, but he does have 25 health and only 6 power on the opponent's side of the board, so definitely not the end of the world when you consider that this Explodinator is already 4 damage almost all the time.
I'd like to see him play out the frame bot and start weaving in hero powers instead of playing the Menace. The Menace can be played next turn with Magnetic. Just
has charge,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So no need to drop it down to just get pinged or something.
DawN not out of the woods just yet. He has stabilized, and we've talked about this. After you get to stabilization point, you might be able to turn the game around, but 16 health, he's got a few turns before the hero powers start getting kind of scary, but you need to draw something, right? Your opponent's at 25. Pushing 4, 2, 6 a turn is okay, but it's not as much as you want, especially when you're afraid of any magnetic coming down and hitting you in the face.
Right. Okay, DawN's next draw is going to be pretty important to how well this matchup continues to go for him. I do like the frame bot, I agree though. That this just feels like good Hearthstone to me. Just play the frame bot, hero power, push extra damage, because also, I'll say it's 8 hero powers away from lethal, but the 2 boom bots, or the two bots, or bombs, speed that up quite a lot. So I do like that now, and you gasped at the Sea Giant, and rightly so.
Yeah.
I said DawN's draw was going to be very important this turn, and wow, that's a biggie, because he might be able to just kill SamuelTsAo next turn.
Depending on what comes out of the Giant, that's goodness. Mechazuna is big. Caligos is cute, but it actually isn't quite what you want. You want something just a bit bigger at this point. You have so much mana to work with that the free spell isn't that great, obviously without getting the battle cry anyways.
Trades. Well, if he pushes 6, push him to 19.
I think he's trying to figure out what happens if exactly second Venomizer missile launch. Actually, no, that doesn't make sense because then he'd want to go face.
I think because now he doesn't set up lethal, right? Whereas he would have set up lethal if he pushed the extra 2 damage.
Goes down to 18. There's 6 plus 14 on the 20. That is true. That is kind of interesting.
Did you need to kill a 3-2? Like 14 health is enough when you have 2 mirror images up, right?
Yeah, that is kind of weird.
Because it would just sound lethal. If your opponent's traded into stuff like Mechathune or a Caligos, obviously the 4-3 is a little bit susceptible to damage, but look, he didn't even end up getting through. If he had the 3-2, he couldn't have got through anyway.
That is very curious. I'm not actually sure why he did that.
Because straight away, when you see a Sea Giant turn with Conjurer's Calling, all I think is a lot of the time you push a lot of damage the turn after, a lot, and especially you got 4 attack with the Caligos, but you got Mechathune, which is 10 attack, so you could set up lethal there, and he just didn't. And
it is kind of odd.
Let's see what happens. I mean, he's still in a good spot because SamuelTsao on 0 cards.
So here's the thing about what other cards SamuelTsao has left in his deck that could potentially stop him from delivering lethal next turn. A Deadly Shot on the Mechathune could happen. Unlikely, but then at that point you'd want to have gone face, right?
Yeah.
You probably want to freeze the board.
Ooh.
I don't know if you need to play this Mountain Giant. I think this is a little...
I thought it was going to be triple freeze.
I think triple freeze would have been a lot safer.
And
don't get me wrong, this is still fine, and I don't think there's anything in Samuel's deck that can stop this lethal happening from DawN.
Yeah.
Ziliak's cute, but I don't think it's going to be enough. The Venomizer let him kill something off, but when you're at 2 health, killing something off isn't good enough.
The issue with Ziliak's against Mage is always just that ping, isn't it? Because like Ziliak's into the 0-1's good, puts you to 5, but then the ping trade will put you to 8, and it's about 18,000 damage on board. So DawN, nod of the head, that got a little bit close there, and again, I think if we're going to start,
earlier, pushing DawN down to 10 health, it would have been a lot easier just weaving a few hero powers, pop off a few bombs, and then that would have been enough. I think the defensive route he took, removed the Giant that DawN had developed. I think it might have been the play that cost him the game.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? Because you've got to weigh it off, although that was definitely an option to push the damage face instead. Conjurer's Calling was in hand, which meant that the turn we saw basically kind of win the game anyway with the Conjurer's Calling later. Ended up happening earlier, and does that actually win the game for DawN quicker instead of SamuelTsao? I don't know. We can't turn back the time or live in one of the alternate universes that are being made, but DawN is going to be kicking off here with a pretty decent opening hand. I would say not mind-blowing, but the way the hand works together, which is what you always have to look at in the Cyclone Mage, isn't half bad. There's the Banana Buffoon, and then potentially as a turn 4 play, the 2 bananas with the Evocation plus the Mana Cyclone. Definitely going to get some stuff cooking here. SamuelTsao does have his 1-drop again, which is just impressive as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, that's true. His follow-up's a little more lackluster at this point, and by that I mean he does have a 2-drop and another 2-drop, but other than that, Lure is not something you want to jam on 5. Deadly Shot, while good, isn't necessarily going to come out because there's not going to be that many big threats from DawN, at least for several more turns. So SamuelTsao is going to have some early pressure, but 3 1-attack minions isn't quite the exact pressure you want. So we'll see if he draws something that can help him develop a bit more aggressively.
Yeah, just to note as well that both players are on their primary deck. They haven't changed, which is why we've not spoken about it yet, but just so you guys are aware that these are still just the same decks. The tech that they have for other matchups aren't relevant here. And again, kind of shows that both players were expected to go against something similar, right? Yeah. SamuelTsao brought Hunter to try and beat Mage, so why wouldn't your primary deck be set up for Mage? And DawN, with a lot of anti-aggro cards, like the double Vexcrow build, and the Frost Nova's like, well, yeah, I thought people were going to try and tech against Mage too, so here's what I've got to help beat that. SamuelTsao, I don't think needs to get too flashy right now. You can just play the upgradable Framebot.
You can also play the Galvanizer, but it only hits 2 mechs right now with a discount, and the mechs it hits can be played relatively cheaply anyways, so I would like to just see the Framebot come down. It feels kind of weird because the whole point of Galvanizer is to make stuff cheaper and just play it out, but the stuff at discounting doesn't do that much just yet.
Yeah, I guess if Galvanizer comes down, he can play both next turn.
True, without using
which means that you can hold coin, and also it just makes it a little bit more flexible. The attack's the same, and your Galvanizer has close to the same chance of living as the Framebot does outside of the double Ray of Frost.
Yeah, I can't see the Galvanizer getting killed this turn.
Yeah, if DawN double Ray of Frost SamuelTsao Galvanizer, then I'm sure SamuelTsao will jump in joy at that point.
With the Apprentice pickup, this opens up a lot of stuff for DawN. He could wait a couple more turns if there's not that much pressure from SamuelTsao and go for the Vextro in combination with the Apprentice. But if he does see SamuelTsao become a bit more aggressive, he can just switch to like an Apprentice, Banana, Evocation, Cyclone game plan.
Right.
I wonder.
SamuelTsao, knowing that he can't just do nothing, develop another Mekaru by itself, he needs to put a bit more power on the board. He chooses to use the Spider Bomb now. Having a Deadly Shot on hand is nice too, so even if DawN does remove the Galvanizer, getting rid of the Spider Bomb Death Rattle, there is still some way to deal with a big threat if it comes down.
And hold on to your seats here, as this is going to be a big turn for DawN. The Sorcerer's Apprentice into the multitude of zero-cost spells, into the free Mana Cyclone is going to create some funky time for DawN now, as this is going to be such a sick... Like, regardless of what spells DawN gets from this Mana Cyclone, this turn's just good.
Yeah.
Like, anyway, it just doesn't really matter.
Choosing to save the other Ray of Frost. Seeing what he gets off of the Mana Cyclone first. Tome of Intellect, not bad.
Ooh, he gets the Icicle too.
A reroll. Okay.
That's not a bad shout.
That's
Power of Creation, although a little bit late, has such a high chance of getting Taunt minions that it could come out, work out being a little bit clutch in the late game.
And did he kind of awkward in this matchup, because a lot of the time when the Mech Hunter has board already, they're just going to magnetize something, and that magnetizing does not actually spawn the minion by itself, so it doesn't proc them randomly.
Yeah. I do like the Ray of Frost, although you could argue they're low priority targets. It actually has the knock-on effect of giving SamuelTsao a bad follow-up turn. You just said about magnetizing things. Well, the magnetizing doesn't gain charge effectively. You don't get the buff that you can swing with that turn. And this sets up a very good turn and good follow-up for DawN with either this Ziliax, or if these minions live, even just Vex grow into a 1-cost is pretty nice.
True. Which kind of begs the question, if your plan was to do this anyways, why not just throw out the Ray of Frost before the Cyclone? I understand you can wait and see what you get off of the Cyclone first, and then decide if you want to Ray of Frost. But I mean, if worst case scenario you didn't get anything good and you're gonna use it anyways, you might as well use it. And then worst case you get something good that you can still use later, but you get one more spell this way.
Yeah, I wonder if just flexibility is worth more than, because the problem is he might not have frozen it if he got different spells.
Right.
And then the problem is you've like wasted a freeze, so to speak. So I guess that's the problem, right? You trade off one card by being able to be a bit more flexible going forward.
Fair.
And SamuelTsao just kind of having to go all in here. And also, a really funny interaction is when you get Scorch from a Mana Cyclone, it's always procced because Mana Cyclone is an elemental.
Yeah.
So it's a really nice thing where you might just see Scorch instantly and be like, wow, 4 cost? Like, just to kill a minion? That's, maybe a lot. But it's always 1 cost on the following turn.
I wonder.
Also, Deadly Shot use, it's just giant go.
Yeah, that's the thing. DawN has to consider, okay, well, we've seen a Spider Bomb, we've seen a Deadly Shot. Do I just trade off this Spider Bomb Galvanizer and just play out my Giant?
I actually don't think that...
Because, I mean, you don't have to, but it's not terrible.
I think, yeah, you know what? I went back and forth for a second there. It's not so much about the Giant, but I think you do want to just get rid of this bomb. So it's gone, right? Mm-hmm. Either way, I think the bomb goes. And if the bomb goes, I think the best follow-up turn is the Giant.
Yeah.
1 Deadly Shot, 1 bomb, gone. It's unlikely.
Scorch is still going to be active because Mountain Giant is an elemental. I like this a lot. So SamuelTsao does not have a lot of gas left. You could just go Leroy here, which lets him kill off the Giant. But he's left with not a whole lot left on board after that. So, and the issue is DawN's at 28, so it's not like
it's nutty, isn't it?
Yeah, he can't just say, okay, I can't deal with board, time to go face, because face has a lot of health.
It's scary when you're playing one of the most outright aggressive decks in the game right now, and your opponent's on 28 on turn 5, on their turn 6 now, and you've brought this deck to beat your opponent's archetype.
The effects are coming down. Not going to be too fancy, but just good enough.
Juggler, okay.
Oh my god. Juggler.
There's no complaints there.
Can even play Khadgar and then play more spells, which procs more summons off the Vexcrow, which procs jugglers.
Just, like, Khadgar Ziliax next to it is more than okay. And that turn's just good.
Oh, wow.
Khadgar, mirror image. Haha.
So SamuelTsao does need to have to find his Venomizer and Missile Launcher. That's when he needs to be able to get back into the game. So from DawN's perspective, he has to think, okay, the only thing that lets SamuelTsao get back in the game is exactly a Venomizer Missile Launcher. So I need to make sure I commit enough to the board that I can be aggressive and try to end out the game, but I can't commit so much that I lose to exactly that.
DawN just smiled there because he realized he actually just misplayed a little bit. He wanted to clear the board fully, so he played Khadgar first. And then, obviously, one of the juggles actually ended up hitting the
bomb.
So he lost 1 damage. But also just really funny as well that, like, the spell generates minions, which procs the juggler.
Yeah.
But the juggles hit face anyway, so he got away with it. It's a really weird way to play, but I'd actually really like to just see the Mirror Entity now, I think. Okay, why? Explain me this one. Why is he not playing Mirror Entity? What's the punish?
Doomsayer.
Because it was too many.
You're so far ahead now, you don't need to make a full board, right? You're losing to exactly what I said earlier, Venomizer, Missile Launcher, and against that, this is fine. I don't need to commit much more, and if you play the Mirror Entity, whatever you get copied is still going to die to the combo, so let's not play too crazy here. Like, sure, I get 2 extra minions here, but, I mean, if I hit a Doomsayer, it's kind of annoying, so let's just chill.
Okay.
Like, that's crazy. He's so far ahead, he just doesn't think he needs to do anything else.
Yeah, I mean, it's absurd. And now, look at...
I want all these to go face. I don't want him to trade the Divine Shield. I want him to say, all right, Samuel, if you want to clear this, just you make the trades.
I think he could, yeah, I was going to say, I think he could do this, to be honest. Yeah. I think even if this didn't work out, he didn't go for this play, I think trading Khadgar on the 1/5,
sure,
whatever at this point, I don't think he needs it. And this is absurd. Like, yes, some fortunate things happened, but DawN was playing majority with the cards in his deck, right? He did the things the deck does, and SamuelTsao barely has even scratched him. And yes, it's obviously fortunate that a mech was generated from the Vexcrow along with the Juggler, but
even without that,
I think it would have been fine. Like, this Ziliax onto the upgradable frame bar is obviously absolutely gigantic, but this is just a problem, right? It's like, yeah, that's just going to be game, and DawN. With their cheeky, there you go. DawN just throwing out the 4 there, 4-0 now, DawN. With